Dangerously hot temperatures are scorching the Midwest and Northeast, while out west, wildfires in New Mexico have killed at least 2 and unleashed intense flash floods. In California, the Post fire north of Los Angeles has grown to more than 15,000 acres in size and has forced the evacuation of hundreds of people. Meanwhile, some Texas cities seeing nearly 3 times the June average rainfall over just 48 hours as Alberto made landfall in Mexico. The Supreme Court issuing more decisions today after releasing several Thursday. The highest profile cases from this term remain undecided, including Donald Trump's claim that he's immune from prosecution on charges he tried to overturn the 2020 election. The Border Patrol says arrests at the U.S.-Mexico border are down 25% since President Joe Biden announced new asylum restrictions 2 weeks ago. New figures show arrests in May also fell by 9%, straight week to the lowest level in almost 3 months. The standard 30-year fixed-rate mortgage averaged 6.87% for the week ending June 20th. That's down from a 2024 peak of 7.22%. Still, mortgage rates remain higher than anything seen in the 10 years before 2022. Those are your headlines. Now here's a look at your weather on the ones.
I'm meteorologist Julie Marquez, and today in Milwaukee, 75 degrees. It's cooler. Enjoy sunshine in Chicago at 82 degrees because it's going to be hotter this weekend with rain chance Saturday night. Des Moines, some rain at 89 degrees. Indianapolis and Kansas City hot with highs in the 90s. Thunderstorms could be severe for parts of Montana, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. More on that coming up.
Thanks so much for today. Is Friday, June 21st. Our top story, severe weather is impacting much of the U.S. again today. Dangerously hot temperatures are scorching the Midwest and Northeast, while out west, wildfires in New Mexico have killed at least 2 and unleashed intense flash floods. Meanwhile, some Texas cities seeing nearly 3 times their June average rainfall over 48 hours as Alberto made landfall in Mexico, leaving at least 4 dead. In Corpus Christi, video shows Texas A&M Task Force 1 conducting welfare checks amid knee-deep water. Spectrum News anchor Jenna Enoch has more.
Oppressive heat leaving Americans searching for any way to cool down.
It's about 100 degrees, it feels like.
And as the heat bears down on the country, those in the Midwest are facing new flooding, while the northern parts of New England are finally looking forward to a cool down. And in New York City, this heat wave may be the longest. In D.C., the city is slowing its commuter trains when rail temperatures get too hot, as they're face-to-face with temperatures topping 100 degrees for the first time since 2016. And while many battle the heat, others in the South are trying to stay safe as the first named storm of the hurricane season bears down.
On the one hand, we have fire threats. On the other, now we have rain and flood threats as well.
The severe weather in some northern states is leaving many underwater, and so many living there are still recovering from bats of heavy rain earlier this week.
We noticed that the water was coming up to the cars. We informed people that need to be informed, and the water just kept coming in. It was like watching the Titanic sink.
Jenna Enoch, Spectrum News.
Even with the extreme heat, there are a lot of Americans who can't avoid being outside. Among them, athletes who are taking part in various camps all across the country. Our Kennedy Chase spent the day at an athletic training camp at Ohio, keeping top athletes safe while they are out in the heat.
So it really comes down to prevention and anticipation of potential issues that arise.
Keeping athletes safe in the heat at the Ohio State 7-on-7 football camp is Sean Barnhouse's top priority. Barnhouse is the assistant athletic director for athletic training at OSU, and he says he and his team have to expect the unexpected.
It's all about anticipating the extra heat, so having extra stations of hydration, having extra hands on deck to manage the athletes that are out here and during practices as well. So just having that anticipatory mindset for days like today.
The camp, which is in its final day, attracts some of the top high school football players from around the country. Several hydration stations and water misting tents are set up around the outdoor shade when they need to. But it's the resources and professional staff that are crucial in ensuring the safety of the athletes in case heat-related issues arise.
Having all those eyes, our coaches, our medical staff, having all those eyes on those athletes is important to be able to deal with those issues when they do come up. So having the resources available readily is key to making sure that issue, if that issue does come up, it doesn't get any worse.
With feel-like temperatures almost reaching 100 degrees all week, lots of water, time in the shade, and more breaks are the keys to keeping athletes safe outside in the extreme heat. For Spectrum News, I'm Kennedy Chase.
It's another decision day at the Supreme Court. The High Court still has more than a dozen cases to rule on before the end of its term. Another opinion day has now been added to the calendar. Spectrum's national reporter Angie Gonzalez has more.
Some of the most consequential cases argued before the justices this term are still outstanding.
It's important for people to realize the Supreme Court doesn't hold cases that are finished and ready till the end of the term just to build suspense or create a kind of blockbuster finale. They release cases as they're done.
The big ones include opinions on presidential immunity, the legality of certain January 6 prosecutions, abortion rights in emergency care, possible limitations to Second Amendment rights, and cases on whether state social media laws violate the First Amendment. In a separate case, lawyers for the states of Missouri and Louisiana are awaiting a decision after they argued before the court that the Biden administration violated the First Amendment when it tried to get social media sites to take down online misinformation about the COVID-19 pandemic and the 2020 election.
They went to Facebook, Google, others, and Twitter, and they demanded that those companies censor on the government's behalf.
But in March, most of the justices sounded skeptical of that argument, and the government argued it did not engage in coercion, only encouragement. In April, the court's liberal justices were also highly critical of another case still before the court that legal experts consider one of the most significant on homelessness in decades. In it, justices are weighing the constitutionality of tactics in Grants Pass, Oregon, to fine people for sleeping outside as a way to manage homeless encampments.
The justices also still need to decide whether a multi-billion-dollar settlement with the family behind the pain pill OxyContin can move forward. The agreement would offer the Sackler family broad protection from OxyContin-related civil claims. In Washington, Angie Gonzalez, Spectrum.
Since President Biden announced new asylum restrictions 2 weeks ago. New figures released show arrests in May also fell by 9%, making it the third lowest month during the Biden presidency. Aggressive enforcement on the Mexican side of the border has also helped to bring the numbers down. Coming up on our political buzz, we take a look at some big fundraising moves in the presidential race.
Here's the deal. In this election year, people need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation.
Eastern 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
At Spectrum, we know how much you depend on the reliability of our products and services. Now, we've taken a new step forward in reliability by identifying potential service issues before they become a problem. If you're affected, we'll contact you and help schedule a free service appointment with one of our expert technicians. The proactive maintenance of our network is one of the many reasons Spectrum delivers the most reliable internet speeds in the nation. Spectrum, keeping you connected.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. An even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I found hope in the midst of an overwhelming situation.
Alcoholism is a disease that can affect any family. Everyone suffers, but there is help and hope at Al-Anon Family Groups.
Al-Anon gave me my life back. I'm a better father and husband.
Are you in an overwhelming situation because of someone else's drinking? Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Local and virtual meetings are available. Maybe one could work for you. Call 1-866-200-0033 or visit alanon.org/hope.
And the heat wave. There's a risk of severe storms in parts of the country, and we're also watching the tropics. I'll talk more about that in about 10 minutes, but I want to talk about the heat because it has been relentless across portions of the Midwest and the Northeast. Temperature today in New York City is 90 degrees with a heat advisory. Philly's 95, same thing in Washington, D.C. Look at Pittsburgh, Columbus, Indianapolis, St. Louis in the mid-90s, and in some areas it's going to feel near 100 degrees. So we have high heat index values too. Tomorrow, Philly's 97 degrees. We have 87 for Albany and 92 degrees in New York City, where the heat advisory is in effect through the weekend. And this orange shading on the map, probably used to seeing this. This covers parts of Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, into West Virginia and into New Jersey. These are the advisories for the heat. Some of these last through away from the coast. This weekend we'll experience temperatures over 100 degrees. So Saturday, looking at Bakersfield, California at 108, Palm Springs 110, Las Vegas 110 degrees, Phoenix also over 100. Salt Lake City will be about 97 degrees. Now to take a look at the rainfall coverage, and some of it's going to be very heavy with the threat of severe storms for parts of Wisconsin, Minnesota, the Dakotas, back into areas like New Mexico, Utah, and in Colorado as showers, some thunderstorms develop. This is through Saturday at 6 o'clock. We see rain with scattered showers, thunderstorms across portions of the Northeast, and we also have some areas of rain for parts of Florida too. There's a system out in the Atlantic, an area of low pressure that's going to move toward Northeast Florida today. We'll talk more about that with a look at the tropics coming up.
Well, if you're just joining us or heading out the door, here's a look at what you need to know. Dangerously hot temperatures are scorching the Midwest and Northeast, while out west, wildfires in New Mexico have killed at least 2 and unleashed intense flash floods. And in Texas, some cities seeing nearly 3 times the June average rainfall over just 48 hours as Alberto made landfall in Mexico. The Supreme Court issued several rulings Thursday. However, the highest profile cases from this term remain undecided. More rulings are expected this morning. And the Border Patrol says arrests at the U.S.-Mexico border are down 25% since President Biden announced new asylum restrictions 2 weeks ago. And that's a look at what you need to know this morning. Former advisor to Donald Trump, Steve Bannon, is due to begin his 4-month prison sentence next month. A federal appeals court rejected his trial judge had initially paused his prison sentence for the duration of the appeal process. 2 years ago, a jury found Bannon guilty of contempt after he refused to comply with a subpoena for an interview as part of a congressional investigation into the January 6th attack on the Capitol back in 2021. Bannon could still seek the emergency intervention of a higher court in hopes of avoiding jail time. It's time now for our political buzz. Joining me now is Jason Fechner. Jason, new fundraising numbers are out, and it appears that former President Donald Trump outraised President Joe Biden again. Jason, let's talk about these numbers.
Bree, good morning. Good to see you. Happy Friday to you. Let's first start with President Biden. $85 million raised in May for himself and the DNC. That is up from April. So good news for the president there. But when it comes to Trump and the RNC, as you mentioned, $141 million for Trump and the RNC in May. That included $53 million in the 24 hours right after his criminal conviction. So that was a big boost to his fundraising totals. The gap essentially closed now when it comes to cash on hand for the two. Fundraising ramping up for both sides as their numbers both go up now. And when it comes to raising money, let's also talk about spending money. President Biden outspent former President Donald Trump in the month of May. Spending heavily on ads, spending heavily on staff as well, roughly $30 million for him. That could basically explain his little bump in the polls as of late. Finally, some good polling numbers coming in for President Biden. That could potentially help with fundraising now in the month of June. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think it was important that you pointed out there, too, that these numbers are from May, when backing Trump received $50 million from Timothy Mellon, and Biden receiving $20 million from former New York City mayor and billionaire Michael Bloomberg. What effect will these giant donations have on the race?
How nice must it be to sit back and donate that amount of money to anyone in politics, let alone anything at all? Timothy Mellon, somewhat reclusive heir to the Pittsburgh banking fortune, $50 million to Trump, also in the wake of his criminal conviction. But he's also given $25 million in this past election cycle to the PAC that is supporting Robert F. Kennedy Jr., so kind of splitting his money there. Bloomberg, of course, $20 million to Biden. And it seems like a billion years ago that Bloomberg was running against Biden ahead of the 2020 election. But I think it just goes to show that there are some big dollar donors that are out there, some big dollar donors that have waited to this point and are still waiting to decide on whom they're going to contribute to going ahead toward November, ramp up significantly now in the next couple of months.
And Jason, former President Trump making some interesting comments about a proposal for foreign students on a podcast yesterday. Let's take a listen to that.
Is you graduate from a college, I think you should get automatically, as part of your diploma, a green card to be able to stay in this country. And that includes junior colleges, too.
Now, Jason, this seems somewhat contradictory to other Trump stances and even past policies. What do you make of this?
Yeah, as you mentioned, definitely contrasts with the anti-undocumented immigrant rhetoric that we often see through the years. And on the campaign trail just this week here in Racine, Wisconsin, there were chants of "send them home" coming from the crowd. So very interesting to see how this proposal, if it's an official proposal, if it was something kind of said offhand during this podcast, is reflected in his base there. It came during a podcast called All In with venture capitalists, and Trump was trying to make the argument that we need, quote, you need a pool of people to work for your company, and they have to be smart people. So Trump differentiating between them and potentially other immigrants that are out there right now. Very interesting to see, again, how that plays with his base, and very interesting to see how that potentially impacts his poll numbers going ahead over the next few weeks.
All right, Jason, thank you very much.
Have a great day.
If you're looking to buy a home, there's some relief at the bank. We'll have all the details for you ahead right here on Spectrum News.
Spectrum News Plus. News from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation. With balanced reporting, providing real context and in-depth coverage.
Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, connecting communities. We are Spectrum News Plus. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
That was perfect.
But I heard every word.
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
a look at the threat of some severe storms today. And you see these areas in green and in yellow. There is a risk of some severe storms, a level 2 out of 5 risk for places like Billings, Montana, Casper, Wyoming, back to about Minneapolis and parts of Wisconsin. There could be some isolated tornadoes here, hail or damaging winds too. Now we also, across portions of the Northeast, have the threat of getting some strong wind gusts as showers and storms move across this region today. So near Syracuse, Pittsburgh, Hartford, Connecticut, even New York City will have to watch for that. What we have in place is this area of low pressure in this frontal boundary. So you can see all of this rain, and some of it's going to be very heavy, was leading to some flooding concerns for parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and South Dakota today. This is a look at tonight. If you're heading out for your Friday night, watch out for showers and thunderstorms across the Southwest. That could lead to some flooding here. Places near will be able to get outside and enjoy your Friday evening. But you'll notice those areas of rain, those thunderstorms will continue moving into parts of the Northeast. So even through your Saturday, you have outdoor plans, you will be dodging some showers and scattered thunderstorms. Here's an update on the tropics. 2 areas we're watching. Nothing's named right now. One of them is an area of low pressure east of Florida, and another area to watch is going to be the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. Now, the area of low pressure east of Florida could become a tropical depression today. It is moving toward the west-northwest. So this will arrive near Jacksonville, perhaps near Savannah, Georgia, later today. And this area is being monitored to see if we can get a closed low-level circulation for it to be declared a tropical depression. Now, we also have an area that we're monitoring in the southwestern Gulf for the weekend, as an area of low pressure will be forming and then could bring again heavy rain and strong wind into South Texas. Temperatures for today heating up to 113 degrees in Phoenix, 89 degrees in Denver, and 94 degrees in St. Louis. Nashville, Washington, D.C., Raleigh, all in the 90s today. New York City has a heat advisory through the weekend. Low temperatures are going to be in the 70s for Dallas, Nashville, and also Raleigh, down into about Jacksonville, Florida, but it will remain cooler in parts of the Northwest. Have a good weekend.
Well, some good news for home buyers. Mortgage rates falling for the 3rd straight week to the lowest level in almost 3 months. Freddie Mac reporting yesterday the standard 30-year fixed rate mortgage averaged 6.87% for the week ending June 20th. That's down from a 2024 peak of 7.22%. Still, mortgage rates remain higher than anything seen when the Federal Reserve began to raise interest rates to combat inflation. In a major win for conservationists, nearly 1,300 acres of land in a San Diego county is now firmly in the hands of conservation groups. The groups coming together to save the land from a development project that threatened multiple rare local species. Aubrey Steffen has the full story.
Hiking through Proctor Valley in San Diego is more relaxing now that Cara Lacey knows the landscape will stay wild.
Feels great. It's been such a long and winding road to get here.
She works for the Nature Conservancy, one of the groups who fought to keep the nearly 1,300 acres of habitat from being turned into a housing development. A court ruled the land was too valuable to critically endangered species like the Kino checker spot butterfly and the coastal California gnatcatcher, as well as too high a fire risk for housing. Several conservation groups' biodiversity is protected.
It would have been approximately 1,100 homes right here. So just being able to take this landscape in, it's one of my favorite places in San Diego County, so I'm just so happy.
Traditional tribal music kicked off the official celebration. Not a groundbreaking, but a ground saving.
Last year, the Endangered Species Act turned 50 years old. We're about the same age.
Paul Souza with U.S. Fish and Wildlife says this property sits at the heart of more than 60,000 already protected acres, and it will now link the land, saving it from habitat fragmentation.
What's important about this location, too, is it's one piece of a massive puzzle of wildlife habitat.
Paul says state and federal plans have prioritized protecting properties needed to establish biodiversity and enhancing resiliency in the face of global climate change.
Local government boundaries or state government boundaries, even national boundaries, species don't follow these lines. What they need is the landscape in which they were adapted to survive and thrive.
This is our California buckwheat right here.
The property will be owned and managed by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Cara hopes their victory shows the power of collaboration to protect the natural world.
If that housing development had gone in, it would have created an almost impenetrable barrier to movement. Ecstatic that we were able to save this place for wildlife, for people, to keep it for future generations.
Connecting wild places for the wildlife who needs them. Bree Steffen, Spectrum News.
Looks like their plan really took root. And you can always stay connected with us here at Spectrum News by getting your national and local store and on Google Play. I'm Bree Driscoll. Thanks so much for watching. Your Spectrum News in 90 is coming up right after this short break. Stay with us.
The 2024 election will decide who leads our nation and the balance of power in Congress, impacting all of us. From Capitol Hill to the Oval Office, let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth coverage with our dedicated experts in local politics. Available on all of your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
At Spectrum, our workforce of over 100,000 employees are all located right here in the U.S. You can find them in our stores, in the field, and in our call centers with 100% U.S.-based customer service. Our team works hard to provide the towns, cities, and neighborhoods they live in with the reliable services that everyone counts on, making us one of America's most trusted companies. We're Spectrum, creating jobs and opportunities across the country, and proud to be 100% U.S.-based.
When I never graduated from high school, I realized I wanted to go back to school because I didn't want to work these back-breaking jobs the rest of my life. With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed to come back to school. I felt accomplished.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
My mother was always very familiar with her neighborhood, but one day she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual, and she didn't know whether she should go forward or turn, and she wasn't even really sure where she was at. It was very unsettling for her.
I felt so much better after my son told me, "Mom, I don't want you to worry or be afraid. I'll be there for you and we'll figure it out."